and welcome to today's 5 at 5. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to continue with what we talked about the last time we were together. We were talking about lamenting, and I shared with you about the two that were on their way on the road to Emmaus and how Jesus joined them. If you didn't get to see the last 5 at 5, look back at that one so that you will understand even more what I'm saying today. But I found it to be very interesting that here they were lamenting over the loss, over what they had seen of Jesus being crucified, and how their hopes had been dashed, it seemed, because they thought he was going to be the one to save. Little did they know he had risen. And in that moment, they are on the road lamenting. Jesus joins them, but they don't recognize him. And the thing that stands out to me is that oftentimes in our grief, in our loss, in our hurt, in our pain, in our despair, we don't realize that Jesus is with us. Our eyes are maybe so filled with tears, and our ears so filled with hurt, the words and noise and all kinds of things around us, that we miss the presence of a very present God. You know, his name is Emmanuel, God with us. I want to continue as we talked about the lamenting. I want to share this time from Lamentations chapter 3, reading from the NLT, New Living Translation. And it says, this is Jeremiah and what he was feeling, his lament. And it says, I am the one who has seen the afflictions that come from the rod of the Lord's anger. He has led me into darkness, shutting out all light. He has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. He has made my skin and flesh grow old, and he has broken my bones. He has besieged and surrounded me with anguish and distress. He has buried me in the dark place like those long dead. He has walled me in and I cannot escape, and he has bound me in heavy chains. And though I cry and shout, he has shut out my prayers. He has blocked my way with a high stone wall. He has made my road crooked. He has hidden like a bear or a lion awaiting to attack me. He has dragged me off the path and torn me in pieces, leaving me helpless and devastated. He has drawn his bow and made me the target for his arrows. He has shot his arrows deep into my heart. My own people laugh at me. All day long they sing their mocking songs. He has filled me with bitterness and given me a bitter cup of sorrow to drink. He has made me chew on gravel. He has rolled me in the dust. Peace has been stripped away, and I have forgotten what prosperity is. I cry out, my splendor is gone. Everything I'd hoped for from the Lord is lost. These are Jeremiah's words. And have you ever felt that everything that you had hoped for had been lost? Well, this is where I want to continue. Listen to this. It says, the thought of my suffering and homelessness is bitter beyond words. I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss. I don't know. I can say that. There are times in my life that I can truly say that I was able to say, I'll never forget this awful time as I grieved over my loss. Then he says, and this is so powerful, Jeremiah says, yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. And it tells me that when we are going through, we have to remember. He said, when I remember, the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh Each morning, I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance. Therefore, I will hope in him. You can continue reading that. This is Lamentations 3. It continues as he reminds himself, as he calls to his mind, as he remembers and reflects on the goodness of God. You know, there is so much we could lament about. There's so much. There's so much hurt. There's so much loss. There's so much disappointment, despair, people suffering with diseases, and just so much. But when we remember, that's what we've got to do. We've got to call to our mind. We've got to remember what God has already done and remind ourselves of what he is doing, for he is always at work, even when we can't see what is happening. Sometimes we are in a situation year after year after year after year. I went back the other day and I found these cards, index cards, that I had written in 2015 and 2016. When I was going through a tremendous storm, and I look at the prayers that I wrote down and I see where God has answered these prayers. I want you to go back and I want you to remember. I want you to think about the times. I want you to, if you have a journal where you've written down prayers, or go back and look so that you can remember what you were going through and remind yourself of how God has been faithful and he brought you through, and how he heard you and he answered your prayers. We have to encourage ourselves in the Lord and remind ourselves of what he has done. I pray. I was moving really, really fast in this, but I want you to remember, God is a very present help in times of trouble. He is with us. It's not that he has left us, but sometimes we cannot see, we cannot hear, we cannot feel his presence, but he is the God who is with us, Emmanuel. God with us. I pray this word has blessed you. Meditate on it and receive it. And remember, we are blessed to be a blessing. I look forward to seeing you next time on the next 5 at 5.